Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today's video is going to be an overview of my top 10 of the best neutral eyeshadow palettes for 2023. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. If you're into eyeshadow palettes, Estee and Catrice, and getting the use out of your makeup the way that I am, then definitely stay tuned because today I'm going to be updating you on my favorite neutral palettes of the year. I always do this in January where I sort of try to look back on what I was using, and I've been doing this video for I think 3 or 4 years. So I'll make sure to link you to any of my previous editions down below. And I feel there's definitely been a bit of a switch. There's only a few palettes here that I have featured in this video before that I feel still stand strong and tall of really good neutral everyday palettes. Nothing I have for you here today is overly cool or overly warm. I feel these all fall into the more smack into the middle kind of ground of what a neutral palette can be. And these are my top 10 favorites, so let's just get to them. And in case you're new here and you've never seen my videos, then it may be good to know that I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, which greatly skews my makeup preferences. And because I have been buying, trying, and reviewing makeup for more than a decade, I also have some very strong favorites. So I know what I like. If you would like to join the Snow Angel Club and want more of that, then definitely click subscribe down below. So yes, we have 10 palettes here. These are in no particular order. I'm not ranking these, and save for one, I have reviews up with all of these already. So I'm going to be linking you to those reviews down below in the description box. So if you want to see swatches and looks that I did with these, that you are taken care of that way. So yeah, a lot more content that I already have up with these. So I'm not going to be including swatches or looks in this particular video. It's just about the roundup. So first up, because it's the smallest bit, it had to go on the top. This is the Collidos Cold Brew eyeshadow palette. This was launched as part of their Smokey Nostalgia collection at the start of 2022. And I saw the launch of that collection and I was like, that is right bang on the money. And the Cold Brew one, I'm still sort of on the fence which one of the two is my favorite, because I also really like the Black Jasmine palette, but that's grays with a black. And this is far more my vibe. It's browns, and they're not too cool and not too warm. I thought when I first spotted this online that it was going to be more of a taupey vibe, but I feel these are too brown for them to truly be taupes, if that makes sense. But really good neutrally browns that fall smack in the middle isn't something we've seen from a lot of brands in recent years. So I was really happy with this launch, and it has a really stunning shimmer. I've said this in previous videos before though, I wish the shimmer from the Black Jasmine was in this one, and this shimmer was in the Black Jasmine. I feel that the shimmer combos in these little Collidos quads aren't always right for the entire color story, and it's just not really giving much. It's quite monochromatic, but it's great for every day. I mean, you've got a crease shade, something to blend it out, something to deepen it up, and a really nice intense high shine shimmer for that more sparkly moment if you so wish. You could of course just go in with these two, you've got a look. You could go in with these two, you've got a look. You can go in with these two, you've got a look. So even though this is only 4 shades, you've got so many options, and I really love these Collidos quads in terms of quality as well. The quality is on point. It's really greatly pigmented shadow, but not so pigmented that it becomes difficult to blend, which I also appreciate. So the Collidos definitely had to get a mention. Any viewer who's been with me for a while and who has seen this type of video before know how much I love the Lorac Pro 3. Now this is a palette that when it came out, a lot of people vilified for it being too light. And I understand this. If you have anything deeper than a medium skin tone, this is not going to work for you. But for me, it was definitely one of the first neutral palettes that I came across that I could use every single shade from. A lot of the releases we got up until this point had shades that I couldn't really wear because I'm just really, really light. And for instance, some of these deeper shades all pull similarly against my skin tone. So that wasn't perfect, but I'm still happy I have this. Granted, it's been a while since I last used it, so in the next couple of months, before you see my eyeshadow palette declutter, I'm gonna have to rope this into a Shop My Stash to go back to it and revisit this palette and determine, do I still love this as much as I remember loving this? Because I've been doing that series for a while now. Once a month, I like to select like 5 or 6 palettes that I want to go back to that I've either dubbed as favorites or where I'm just wondering, do I still love this formula? Especially some of the more hyped up palettes that we saw in like recent years. I still have some of those around. So I've been testing out, like retesting older palettes, and I'm just really curious whether this will still hold up. I'm still very much attracted to this color story. I mean, these 3 mattes, like these are perfect crease shades for me. I love how we get a little bit of warmth, but nothing is overly warm here. We get a bit of a pop of color with this purple. And my favorite shade here is Rose Bronze. That has a pretty big dent. And I also love this like taupey dark mocha shade. These 3 shimmers are really pretty too. The one that gave people a lot of trouble was Medallion. And I think that this palette was just a little bit ahead of its time because I feel that that kind of sparkly shade is something that we see a lot from brands like Natasha Denona and Pat McGrath. And a lot of people are raving about those, but this people said like, oh, I can't make it work. Whereas people do put in the effort to make it work with Natasha Denona and Pat McGrath. Oh well, I like this. Then a very new bit that I'm sad to say was a limited edition, so it's very difficult to track down at this point, but Catrice did a killer of a release for their fall limited edition collection. This is the Fall in Colors eyeshadow palette. I believe there was also like a face palette to this and some nail polishes, but those didn't really appeal to me, and I very randomly found this at my local drugstore. I couldn't find this online anywhere at the time this launched, but then it just popped up at my local drugstore, and this was one where I was like, yup, you're coming home with me. And because it has the gold background, it pulls a lot more warm toned to your eye than it actually does when you see this overall, also because of the burgundy packaging. Let me see if I can show you this. So if I hide the mirror and I cover these 2 shades up, do you just see how neutral this is? Like this makes it super warm because we get that orange tone in the middle, so we get some warmth, but especially this shade, it's like a greeny, bronzy taupey shade. It's really lovely, one of the deepest shades in the palette, and in fact, some of the deepest shades we get are like a really good neutral dark brown and this really deep, cool tone plummy shade. We also get a warmer plum here, so it's got a little bit of everything. So we get some rosy tones, we get some taupey shades, you get some really nice cool tones over on this side. So yeah, it just has a really good variety of shades that you didn't think would be there at first glance. And what makes this palette truly amazing is the matte and shimmer formula we get in here. The mattes are smooth and creamy and so easy to blend, and the shimmers in this thing, out of this world amazing. I've said this before when I've reviewed this palette for the first time, this isn't just good drugstore makeup, this is good makeup period. If this didn't have the Catrice name on it and you would hide that this was like cheaper cardboard packaging, I'm pretty sure that people would think this would be a much more expensive palette for sure. This was only 15 euros and I'm still very happy I was able to pick it up. A palette that I think is very snowed under and very much underrated in the current makeup space, you could say, is the new launches from Zoeva. So Zoeva did away with all of their infamous chocolate bar palettes that they used to do. They now only do 2 more palettes. The entire line has been rebranded into a more sustainable, vegan, better for the planet kind of thing. So the lack of releases also tend to go with that sort of business practice, you could say. But I really appreciated the Together We Grow when they launched that. The Together We Shine didn't have enough shimmers for my liking, but if you like warmer toned mauves, it's a really pretty palette as well. But the Together We Grow has a little bit of everything. It's again that very vibrant gold packaging, which kind of throws you off. I mean, in terms of true warm tones, you really only get these 2 shades in the middle. This is very neutral. This is great, like blending shades, and especially this shade is a bit more cool toned as well. We get cool toned greeny taupe shades. Love that. And then these are reddish tone browns, but that red and undertone actually make it go really well with my more cool toned undertone. So for me, this is like a perfect neutral tone palette. It has 5 shimmers, 5 mattes, so it's got a 50-50 split, which I love. And I just love how you can really mix and match this palette to your liking, because I feel that depending on how you put the shades together, you will always come out with a good look. You can go in duos, because each duo has a matte and a shimmer, which I love, but you could also go like quads, like that, like this is a quad, this is a quad, this is a quad, this is a quad, and if you pull these two into the other side of the palette, you've got another quad. But it also works if you just use them horizontally, you put the 5 shades together that are one line. So this is great. Every shade goes together in this palette for sure. Great neutral palette that has a little bit differently to offer in the great Zoeva formula that I know they can do. This is an outstanding palette and I wish more people were talking about it. Now, I said there wasn't going to be anything too cool toned in today's video, but I think a palette that was released in recent years that I need to mention in a video like this is the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz. Now, I've said in the past how this, together with the Natasha Denona Retro, have replaced my Urban Decay Naked 3 for me as one of my favorite rosy tone palettes. But the reason why the Retro isn't in this list and the Rose Quartz is because I just see myself getting a little bit more use out of this one in particular. You do get a little bit of warmth. We get a lot of pinky shades over on this side, some vibrant purpley shades. We get something that's a bit more rosy taupe over here. We get some neutrals over on this side. We do get one weird putty shade, but that one you can just ignore, or it kind of works pretty well as a layer to, for instance, top something like this over it. That's really pretty too. So I love how we get some dimension in here, lots of different textures, and a lot of different undertones that I think can work on a lot of people who are just really fair skinned. So if you have fair skin, this is going to be a perfect palette for you, no matter your undertone, because I think that depending on how you mix and match things, you can very easily warm things up or cool things down or just blend things in a way that it will always work for you. Then the palette that I haven't reviewed yet is by Gloss Gods. This is their new neutral eyeshadow palette. And this is one that the minute I got this in, and I already knew I was going to film this video for January, and I was like, I need to try and see if I can get this in my like neutral palette overview, if I like it enough to mention it there. So I have already been playing with this. I haven't used all the shades yet. So in case you don't know, whenever I review a palette, I make sure to have used every single shade at least once before I film a review. So I usually do multiple looks with a palette. I don't just do one look and then tell you how I feel about a palette. So the only shades I haven't used yet are these two, or maybe this matte. So these two mattes and this shimmer. I've used everything else. The entire bottom row is green. And they're really pretty greens. They're this really soft, like khaki kind of shades. It's really, really pretty. This multi-chrome, it looks like a peach in the pan, but I wore this and it has a green flash, so it goes really perfectly with the rest of the palette. So this is, if you want a neutral palette but that can be more glam, this is perfect. The undertones in this, nothing is too warm, too cool. Everything is right smack in the middle, and we get the surprise of some greeny tones in here that I just really enjoyed. Also, this shimmer has a bit of a green flip. We get some multi-chromes in here. This was so stunning, and I adored the two looks. I've done with it so much by now that I just could not mention this right here. So this is definitely one of the my favorite neutral palettes that I've tried in the past year, and so I had to give it a mention. I think another palette that is kind of overlooked is this guy, and this is the Natasha Denona My Dream. And I think what happened is there is always a lot of hype for Natasha Denona palettes upon release, but then some palettes fall a bit down by the wayside by the time it's been out for a week. And I feel that that's happened with the My Dream. But I tried this in December and I was like, but this is a great neutral color story, and especially for people with a much deeper skin tone than mine. For me, this is perhaps a little bit out there, but I'm making videos for a whole host of people, and of course I can only try and see what I like because I only have one skin tone, so that works. But I think that if you have medium to deep skin, olive skin, that this palette features a lot of shades that you're gonna like. if you're very fair like me and you have a cooler undertone, this may not be perfect, but I think that this can offer something to like 75% of the rest of the population who aren't like snow angel like, you could say. So if you're not a snow angel, this may be a really great pick for you. So for me personally, I was like, it's definitely a bit more out of my comfort zone. We get some warmth here, we get some plumminess here, we also get some cool tones. I mean, these two taupey brown shades I really enjoyed, and then also this is quite lovely. So yeah, we get some peachy tones, and this orange, this shimmer, I felt was a lot prettier on once applied, and not as stark of an orange as, you know, it looks in the pan. We get a multi-chrome in here. I've been asked by people like, do you know of a dupe? But I think pretty much any brand that sells multi-chrome shimmers has a shade like this. It's a pink to a green or a green to a pink, whichever way you want to go about it. But I have one from Glam Shop, which is called Pink Frog, and I feel it's very similar to this. So this is definitely nothing too unique in terms of like multi-chromes that are available on the market. But this is a really, really lovely palette, and I really appreciate it for what it did. And I definitely think that now that I have a couple of these Natasha Denona palettes, that in 2023, just to have fun, I think I need to like pull them apart and like rearrange it and like pull some shades, for instance, out of the retro or the glam, and take, for instance, some of these like purples and these like taupey shades and complement those palettes and use them then. But that's like a project for another day. But yeah, I do really think that this palette is a really good complementary palette. If you already own the glam, but you feel you're getting a lot of monochromatic looks out of it, similarly for the retro, I feel that this palette can really be that step up to like get more use out of those palettes. A really good complementary palette for me, but I don't think I will go back to it as a standalone anytime soon. Some more OG favorites then, the Tartelette in Bloom. Of course it had to make an appearance. I still love this thing. Mine is super old, so I don't have removable pans. Apparently it now comes with removable pans, or so I've been told by people who have been buying this palette later. They still do this, it's still out there, and I think this is still a good one. It's a little out of character for me because there's only 3 shimmers and everything else is a matte, but I have mentioned so many times in the past that if you're a beginner in makeup, or if you just don't want to spend a lot of brain space thinking about what look you're gonna do, this Tarte palette spells it out for you. We get a warm toned look, a more neutral toned look, and a cool toned look, all in one palette. You can mix and match if you do want to put in a little bit more thought, but in each row you get exactly what you need to do a full eye look. So really great, all your basic shades are there. I love this thing. And I've said in the past how I feel that the Persona Identity 1 is pretty similar-ish to the Tarte. We do get more shimmers in here. This does have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 shimmers and a satin, I would say. I feel that this is more of a satin shade than a true shimmer. So this is more of that 50-50 split that I love. But I have also mentioned how this is a little bit too deep for me in terms of mattes. Like, I need to blend this matte and that matte to get my perfect crease shade, because it's just a little bit intense. And we do get a bit of warmth, a bit of cool tones. We get a bit of plumminess in here as well, so it's got a lot to offer, and this was apparently formulated especially with brown eyes in mind. So especially if you're someone with brown eyes, I think this may look stunning on you. I do have brown eyes myself, so that's probably one of the reasons why I love this. And there are 2, not 1, but 2 perfect taupey shades. This is more of like a silvery cool toned taupey shade, and then this one is a bit more bronzy rose gold leaning. I love those shades. We all know that. So, Persona Identity 1, I had to give a mention again. And finally, one of my top favorite palettes I tried in 2022, the Viseart Kashmiri. We're saving the best for last. Like, if this were a ranking, this would probably be like the #1, because I don't think I've ever come across a neutral palette that is this perfect for anyone. Like, if you're just looking for very good, basic, everyday palette, this guy. It's got the warmth, it's got the rosy tones, it's got some cool tones, we get neutrals, it's got everything in a lovely Viseart formula. Let me see, we get 1, 2, 3, 4 mattes, only 4 mattes, and everything else has a level of shimmer. I feel that this and this are more like satiny shades. The rest are more true like shimmer shades. And I feel that the Viseart formula is just really soft and pretty, even in their more metallic formula. It just never looks really out there on your skin, especially because, you know, I'm in my late 30s. My lids are starting to get a little wrinkly, I'm not gonna lie. So these really high shine, metallic-y, flaky shades like you get in the Gloss Gotch palette aren't always the best if you have like aging skin. It could fall down, it may not stick down the way you want to. Maybe if you have a bit of a hooded eye, it could crease very easily, which is why I so highly rate the Viseart formula. This never creases, it's foolproof. I think anybody can get away with this. Is this the most intense shimmer? If that's what you're looking for, maybe not this one, but I do have plenty of other recommendations that I've given you today that do have that high shine shimmer. But this I love. It's soft, it's pretty, every look you do. A bit like with the Zoeva actually, you get quads that you can use. But you can also use like rows, or you can use like little duos like that. Like, it's just such a clever layout that no matter the look you do, it's just going to look perfect every single time. And I love me a foolproof eyeshadow palette, especially if it's like a neutral tone palette that I want to be perfect for every day, just to whack something on before I go to work. This guy, for sure. All day, every day. Viseart's Kashmiri. So those were the 10 palettes that I wanted to share with you in today's video. I really hope you appreciated me sharing my recommendations. As I already mentioned, reviews can be found in the description box down below. And I did also do an overview of some favorite neutral palettes on my Shop My Shelf. So I'll make sure to link you down to that as well. So if you want to shop any of these and use my affiliate links, then that's of course possible. You don't have to, please don't feel obliged. But if you want to help out the channel, then that's another way you could do that if you were interested in buying any of these. So yeah, thank you so very much for joining me. And for now, if you would like to thumbs up the video, lovely. Subscribe if you're interested in seeing more by me, because I've got a lot more eyeshadow palette content planned for you, for sure. So hope to see you in my next video. Take care, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.